Chapter 8, Whispers from the Edge of the World, Covenants of Rock, Ice, and Ocean. After we had learned the various philosophies of growth, our great consciousness began to ask even more challenging questions. Can life exist where there is no soil? Where freezing cold is the ruler? Or in the endless kingdom of salt? The answers came not in the form of towering trees, but in the form of the strangest and most beautiful covenants. 1. The covenant of ice, plants on high mountaintops. You ask, does it want the cold? The consciousness that dwells in those lands would answer, we do not want the cold, but we understand it. On high mountain peaks and the frigid tundra, lands feared by most of us, the fierce war for light from the forests below is meaningless. Here, the true enemies are the slicing wind and a cold that bites to the core. Therefore, those of us who chose this path made the covenant of ice. Abandoning height. We discovered that safety was not found high up, but in being flat against the ground. We grow in low, dense cushion plants, to escape the most brutal winds. Wearing a cloak, we grew fine, white hairs, trichomes, to cover our leaves. This wasn't for beauty, but to trap a thin layer of air around us, like a fur coat, helping to retain warmth and reduce water loss in the dry, cold air. Flowers of haste, when the short summer arrives, we have no time. We pour all our energy into producing the most brilliantly colored flowers possible. It is a loud shout into the silence, to attract the few pollinating insects that survive in this land. Our beauty here is a beauty born of desperation and hope, all at once. 2. The covenant of the rock, the birth of flowers on stone. And what about on bare rock? There is no soil, no water, no nutrients, only emptiness. The great consciousness of the wild admitted, we cannot do this alone. So, we sought an ally. A life form completely different from us, the kingdom of fungi. They are the masters of decomposition, able to secrete acids to break down minerals from rock. But they cannot create food from sunlight as we can. It was there that the covenant of the rock was born. It was the union of two completely different lives, becoming a new life called lichen. A shared body, it is not a plant, nor is it a fungus. It is a home that the fungus builds to embrace the algae, which is us, in single-celled form, within. A perfect exchange, the fungus provides shelter, protecting us from the scorching sun, and mines minerals from the rock for us. And we do what we do best, photosynthesis, creating food to sustain both ourselves and our companion from another kingdom. The pioneers of life, lichens are the greatest proof that life can begin from nothing. We are the pioneers who slowly break down rock over hundreds or thousands of years, creating the very first grains of soil, preparing the way for the next generation of plants to follow. 3. The covenant of the ocean, coral. This was the most incredible and challenging experiment, the vast kingdom of saltwater. The great consciousness of the wild knows that the coral you see is not, in its essence, one of us. That magnificent limestone structure is built by tiny animals, polyps. But, if you look deep within the tissues of those animals, you will find us. We, in the form of single-celled algae, zooxanthellae, have made the covenant of the ocean, which may be the most intimate covenant of all. A living home, instead of building our own bodies, we chose to live inside the body of another. We reside within the coral's tissue, protected from enemies and positioned perfectly to receive the sunlight that filters through the clear water. The breath of sunlight, in return, we give our most precious gift, food. We photosynthesize and share most of the energy we produce with the coral. It is this energy that allows those tiny animals to have enough strength to build the massive limestone structures that become the world's great coral reefs. The colors of life, the vibrant colors you see in a coral reef, the greens, the browns, the golds, those are not the colors of the animal, but the colors of millions of our cells living inside. When the ocean warms to the point where the coral becomes stressed and expels us, the phenomenon of coral bleaching occurs. It is the image of an empty animal structure, devoid of the color and energy we provide. Thus, from the coldest peaks to the driest rocks, and down into the deep blue sea, the great consciousness of the wild never stops experimenting. We have learned that existence does not always mean standing alone. Often, it means finding an unlikely ally and whispering the words of a covenant, to create life where everyone said it was impossible. Chapter 9, Whispers from the Branches, the Record of the Walker. In the primordial age, my world was green and brown. I am the walker. My life moved to a simple rhythm: awaken at sunrise, walk to find, chew to exist, and sleep when the shadows grew long. My food was leaves. It was an endless supply. The entire world was my dining table. I learned to distinguish the tastes of survival. I knew that some dark green leaves were acridly bitter, a warning from the flora, do not eat me. I knew that some young shoots provided more energy than old, tough leaves. I learned to avoid sharp thorns and be wary of vines that entangled my legs. Eating was not a pleasure, it was a mission. It was the filling of an empty void in my belly. I chewed, and chewed, swallowing the coarse fiber to have the strength to walk again tomorrow. My world was vast, yet monotonous. It was an endless, bland ocean of green. Then one day, everything changed. It didn't start with sight, but with scent. As I was nibbling on leaves as usual, an unfamiliar scent drifted on the wind. It wasn't the damp green smell of leaves, not the smell of earth after rain, and not the scent of another animal. It was a scent that was alluring, sweet and profound. It whispered of a promise I had never known. My instinct told me to be cautious, but my curiosity was stronger. I followed the scent slowly, my nose guiding me through familiar bushes. And then I saw it. Amidst the greens and browns I had seen my entire life, there was now another color on a branch. It was a round orb, bright red, like a solidified drop of the sun's blood. It was conspicuous, a beautiful alien in my monotonous world. I hesitated. The plants had taught me that what is different is dangerous. But the sweet scent kept calling. It was an invitation I could not resist. I slowly extended my nose to sniff it. The scent grew stronger. I touched it lightly with my tongue. And in that second, my world shattered and was born anew. It was not the taste of leaves. There was no bitterness, no coarse fiber. Its flesh was soft and juicy. When I bit into it, sweetness exploded in my mouth. Energy surged through my body. It was not just food, it was a reward. I never knew that eating could feel like this. I ate it all, leaving only the hard seeds inside, which I spat out without a thought. That day, I ate no more leaves. My stomach was full, and my mind was awakened. From that day on, my life was never the same. My walking was no longer aimless. I didn't just look for the nearest green leaf, I began to search. I looked up into the treetops for strange colors. I used my nose to smell the wind for the sweet scent of promise. I learned that red offered a succulent sweetness, yellow a sweet tartness, and deep purple a profound flavor. I learned that these rewards appeared in different seasons. I became an explorer. I became a seeker of joy. I never understood that, while I was enjoying that sweet gift, the hard seeds I spat out or excreted in distant lands were my unknowing acceptance of the flora's grand covenant. I did not know that I had become the gardener of the forest, a messenger of life. I only knew that the world no longer held only the taste of survival, but also the hidden taste of joy. And I, the walker, would spend my entire life searching for it. Chapter 10, The Song of Three Realms, The Legend of the Unstoppable. I am an ancient memory. I am the whisper in the blood of every life that looks to the sky, walks upon the earth, and dives into the water. I am the spirit of the journey, and this is my legend, told through three bodies, three eras. First realm, the silent world of blue, ancestor of the sea serpent. My first life began in the blue expanse, in the boundless kingdom of the ocean. I was a hunter of the deep. My body was long and powerful, my fins propelling me through the currents as if I were a part of them. My world was a game of light and shadow, cast down from a ceiling far, far away. I breathed water into my body and felt every vibration of prey swimming nearby. On that ceiling, I often saw shimmering light, and sometimes the dark, hulking shadows of creatures from another world would pass by. I never understood it. I never desired to go there. The ocean was my womb, my home, my everything. I was born here, and I would die here. But in my blood, there was a faint whisper of another world, a world that was dry and warm, a world called land. Second realm, the green world of gravity, ancestor of the Archaeopteryx. Millions of years passed, and that whisper became reality. I awoke in a new body, a body that was heavy. There was no water here to support my frame, but something called gravity pressed me against the solid earth. I did not breathe with water, but with an invisible air that filled my lungs. My feet did not swim, but clung to rough bark and soil. I was an inhabitant of the forest. My life was a chase for insects in the undergrowth and a hiding from predators larger than myself. I looked up and saw the same ceiling, but now it was no longer a ceiling of water. It was the sky, a vast expanse of blue. I saw other creatures flying up there. They had wings and moved with a freedom I did not have, unbound by gravity. I watched them with envy. Every time I leaped from one branch to another, I would spread the feathered panels on my arms. They were not yet true wings, but merely the dream of flight. I tried to stay in the air for just a fraction of a second longer, to touch that freedom. I was alive between two worlds, my feet still bound to the earth, but my heart had already begun to fly. And in my blood, the whisper had changed. It no longer yearned for the land I had left, but cried out for the land I had not yet reached, a world without gravity, a world called the sky. Third realm, the blue world of wind, ancestor of the seagull. And then, the dream became reality. I opened my eyes in a body so light it felt almost non-existent. My bones were hollow, my wings vast and strong. I no longer leaped, I soared. I am a child of the wind. My world is the invisible currents of air that I can ride as high as the clouds. Gravity is no longer a chain, but merely a dance partner I can dive towards and soar away from at will. From up here, I can see both worlds I once left behind. Below is the green and brown land, where my ancestors once ran and hid. And beyond that is the blue water, where my first life was born. I am the only creature who possesses all three realms. I am born on a coastal cliff, on the land. I soar through the air to find food, in the sky. And when I see the silver glint of a school of fish, I fold my wings and plummet towards the water to catch my prey. My body is the bridge that connects all three worlds. I am the culmination of a long journey, the answer to a whisper passed down through the blood for millions of years. I am the one who once swam in the deep, who once walked in the wild, and who now dances on the wind. My spirit no longer belongs to one realm, but to them all. I am the living song of three realms. Chapter 11, The Signature of Life, Why Faces Must Differ. In the dawn of time, when life was but a single cell drifting in the primordial ocean, we all looked the same. I am the great consciousness of life, and I remember that era well. It was an age of simplicity. Every life was a copy of another. Reproduction was the act of splitting oneself. There was no sex, no partner, no distinct self. Every life was a drop in the same ocean, an indistinguishable whisper. But then, I began my riskiest and grandest experiment, sexual reproduction. It was a revolution. It was the merging of two life streams to create a third, unique life. It was the path to infinite diversity, but it also created the most critical problem. How do you know who is one of your own kind? Mating between species that should not mix is the gravest of errors. It is a waste of energy, the creation of weak or sterile offspring. It is the end of a bloodline. The world at that time was filled with life that was beginning to differ, but it was still chaotic. Mating calls sent out aimlessly, mistaken pairings. This was the world's first identity crisis. My answer was not to build walls, but to create a signature unique to every family or species, as you have called them. The face, or appearance, is one of the most powerful signatures I have ever designed. 1. The visual signature, the language of color and pattern. I anointed the male peacock's feathers with brilliant colors, making it a clear declaration, I am a peacock. And I am strong enough to create this magnificent train. The peahen will ignore the sparrow or the eagle, because their signatures are completely different. I painted black and white stripes on the zebra, so they could recognize each other on the vast savanna. The pattern on each one is slightly unique, like a fingerprint. It is the uniform of their species, and at the same time, the identity card of each individual. 2. The auditory signature, the species anthem. In the dense jungle or deep beneath the water, where sight is limited, I gave each family a song. Each species of male frog produces a call with a specific frequency and rhythm. The female frog will ignore hundreds of other calls but will respond only to the correct sonic signature. The song of the humpback whale, which resonates across the entire ocean, is a complex declaration of identity, allowing another humpback hundreds of kilometers away to hear and understand. 3. The olfactory signature, the unseen chemical code. For many creatures, the true face is an invisible scent. I taught the female moth to release a chemical called a pheromone into the air. It is the most delicate and precise signature. The male moth, with antennae designed exclusively to receive this code, can follow the scent to its mate, even from kilometers away. A fox leaves its scent to mark its territory, not just to say this is my place, but also this is who I am. 4. The behavioral signature, the clan's dance. Sometimes, the signature is not something one is born with, but a ritual that must be learned. I designed a complex courtship dance for the grebe. They must bob their heads and run across the water's surface in perfect synchrony. If one of them dances out of step, the pairing fails. It is a test. Do you understand our language? Therefore, the fact that faces are not the same is no accident. It is a language that evolved to answer one of life's most important questions. It is a language that allows living things to say, I am one of you, for herding and reproduction. I am not one of you, to avoid mistaken mating. I am your family. A penguin chick can recognize its parents' call among hundreds of thousands. I am a strong and suitable mate for you. The male lion with the thickest, darkest mane is the healthiest. Every time you look at the different faces of the animal kingdom, from the patterns on a butterfly's wing to the colors on a mandrill's face, know that you are witnessing the world's oldest dialogue. A conversation that helps separate the families, allowing life to continue, correctly and beautifully.